Good morning, everybody. My name is OCD, and welcome to a weekend video. This time, I'm gonna pretty much just talk about my build, like a quote unquote destroyer guide. Thanks to that comment right there. Um, I'm pretty much just gonna go over the skills that I have learned. This is going to be my build. I am Hung Moon 12. I have if you're Hung Moon 10, I'll have 3 more skill points than you. Uh, I'd say maybe tweak my build a little bit if you're Hung Moon 10. This one has worked for me for since I've started playing. Um, I do have Hung Moon skills. I do almost have. Oh, that's my stone shield. I do almost have Hung Moon stone shield. I only need about 4,000 more red beans, and I'll have both Opals for that. Um, but like I said, this is just gonna be my skills. Um, you guys could tweak it as you want, as you see fit. If you don't have any Hung Moon skills, you don't have to use them. Um, but I'm just gonna go through every one of my skills, tell you guys how I do stuff. We're gonna go by the list because by icons it's kind of funky because they have this little X over it, and it's just not worth it going through it all. But right off the bat, let's go. Let's start real quick with the main DPS as destroyer, especially Earth build, Judgment and Cleave, or Wrath and Cleave. So your left mouse button, right mouse button combos. Let's move this over here so everything doesn't go over. For Judgment, I use the right tree, which is recover 10% focus, 10 additional focus upon crit, and 100% crit rate next skill when hit during use, and increases critical hit effect for 3 seconds. So for every left mouse button you do, you can follow that up with a cleave. I use the third tree all the way down for mighty cleave damage. Over 8 seconds, you do a ton of damage, especially if the boss is stationary. I normally use this cleave for PvP, but that's a whole nother video. If you don't have Hung Moon cleave, Hung Moon right mouse button, 1 point above that is perfectly fine. It's just a little bit less damage and no focus recovery for the 8 seconds. But that's kind of one of the first Hung Moon skills I'd say probably get. But same thing with Wrath. Wrath, I use the left tree just because Earth build. Earth damage is pretty nice. Going with Wrath and Judgment, Wrath, and Cleave. So normally, if you left and then right, it's kind of slow. But as long as you get it, you can start pretty much animation canceling. So it's kind of like when the axe comes in front of you from your left click, that's when you have to hit right button. And it's just after a while, it just gets like second nature, as I just showed. I messed up that entire time, so that was just a bunch of cleaves. But after a while, you'll start getting it. It takes a second to start up. I do not use macros. I do not use any different keys. It's just left mouse button, right mouse button. You'll get used to it. And then in Fury, when you're in Fury, you get Wrath, and Wrath turns into just Wrath Cleave combos. So just left, right, left, right, left, right. Same thing as before. And as you can see in here, Wrath Cleave, Wrath Cleave, Wrath Cleave. It does a lot of damage, especially when you're in Fury. Everything crits. But that's give that a minute. We'll go over that in a second. So that's left mouse button and right mouse button. For the F keys, that's going to be your mighty cleave. So if you use this tree on a crit cleave, you'll have the proc for F. You put that down, and over 8 seconds, it'll hit the enemy 4 times. Right? 2, 3, 4. So 5 times total. 1 for the initial hit, and then every 2 seconds after that. That's mighty cleave for F. Grab, I normally only put 2 points into it. If you guys have points that you don't have, let's say Hung Moon skills for, any one of these are good. Decreased damage taken by 10% is good for like PvE. Well, not PvE, PvP. Because as soon as you grab an enemy, you'll take 10% less damage. For PvE though, I'd say use this if you have the points. I don't personally use it because I I have 62% crit. So anytime I use what is it? Not cleave. Whatever the button is, whatever the move is for grabbing an enemy and then hitting him. Because every time you hit that, you'll get 5% crit, stacking up to 10 times, which is an automatic crit. But my crit is so high that every time that I use that move, it just goes away. The buff goes away, and it's a pain in the butt. So I just use 2 points. If your crit is low, I'd say use that. 2 points is fine. You grab the enemy. It blocks frontal attacks. You cannot defend when holding big enemies, and you recover 20 focus every hit that you do. I would love to show you that, but I don't think. Yeah, you can't actually grab anything in here. Next F move is knee. I personally only have 2 points into knee right now because as your animation canceling, if you hit F, you're hitting Mighty Cleave. Sometimes with latency, with ping, if you have no points into this and you crit, you have a chance of using knee as well. So if you hit a crit and try and go for a Mighty Cleave, it might turn into a knee, and that'll go into a single daze, which isn't very nice for parties. So I just throw 2 points into that just to prevent that from happening. Because yeah, nobody likes single daze. Nobody likes single CCs. Next F, I think that's it. Yeah. So knee, grab, and Mighty Cleave are all on your F key. I only do 2 points into knee, 2 points into grab, and Hung Moon Mighty Cleave. Next, we're gonna go into our first CC chain. For destroyers, I normally run 2 stuns, 2 knockdowns, so you get double stun, double knockdown. The first one is Blitz. I only have 1 point into it because I don't know. I think I had an extra point. I don't want to put it into anything else. You could do 2, you could do 3 points down this left tree for stun. Pulls and dazes I would use for mobs, like a bunch of mobs, so like the beginning room of Azura, or if you're just out farming in PvE, leveling up, just so you can bring them all in and take them all out. But me personally, I would only use this left tree because pulls and dazes actually doesn't work on bigger bosses, so it doesn't actually count as a daze. And the right tree is only for like an invul frame if you need it. Only time I would need it was soloing Yeti, and that's pretty much it. That's the first point into stun. The second stun you have is Ram. I go down this middle tree for the invul frame. So this is one of your 3 invul frames, 4 invul frames that we have. This pretty much, you have, I think it's 16 meters, right? You have 16 meters. So if I'm standing here and I use my 2 from right here, this entire time I'm invul until I reset my axe. That's invul frames. For CC chain, I normally do 1 and then 2 because here, let's see, let's speed this up a bit, because 1 actually has a not a cast time. It's not a cast time. It's just travel time for your character. If you use your 2 and then your 1, the 1 might not stun in time. Sometimes it's a little iffy, especially with ping. But for me, it's normally if you're far away, like 16 meters away, I'll use my 1 and then 2 for that double stun, and that normally works for most bigger bosses. Double stun, then grab. Normally do that right off the bat in PvE dungeons. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The 1-2, pretty much 1-2 punch is for stuns. The next thing we got to go on to, there's really nothing else for 1 and 2. Let's do training skills only. So 1, Blitz, Ram. Number 3, probably one of the most important Hung Moon skills to have as a destroyer, Ember Stomp. If you have this one, it's fine. If you don't have Hung Moon Ember Stomp, it's fine. I would recommend getting that as quickly as possible because it will help upgrade your DPS or upgrade your survivability in raids. The two that I use, mainly I use this Ember Stomp for the 20% cleave and wrath damage, because as soon as you go into a boss or go into any battle for me, I normally jump in with a 1. So like say I'm back here, I jump in with a 1, pop my Fury, put down my Ember Stomp, and just LR. Because in Ember Stomp you get 40% more damage, and as I just messed up animation canceling, until that Ember Stomp runs out. But it does do damage over time. It's just mainly for me the 20% cleave and wrath damage, and because I am legendary, I do get 5% more cleave damage just from my weapon. So Ember Stomp buff plus weapon buff, and then plus my legendary shield buff for wrath, I get a butt ton of what's it called, damage boosts for my cleave wrath combo, or wrath cleave combo, and judgment cleave combo. Ooh. If you guys couldn't tell, I am not feeling that great right now, but I'll try and make this a little bit quicker. Let's keep going. The second CC chain that we have is Axe Sweep and Body Kick. I do not have points into either of these, just because for Axe Sweep it's good for PvP, but for PvE I just don't put points into it, mainly because it's already a knockdown and it's all I need it for. Body Kick, same thing, I don't have points into it. It is a knockdown. That's all it is for me. 9-second cooldown for Body Kick, 30-second cooldown for Axe Sweep. One thing to note on this, I do not use 4 then Z. I only use Z then 4. Because Z and 4, Z then 4 is a quicker frame. So like Z goes off and then you can 4 right off the bat. For 4 and then Z, here, let me cut here until this thing resets cooldown right now. Alright, now for 4 and then Z, you kind of have to wait for the 4 to finish the animation, and in PvE dungeons you'll actually see a bigger wait for it. So like 4, I'll spam Z right after I hit 4, but once you hit 4, you have to kind of wait to hit Z, and sometimes that'll be a little bit iffy, especially with bosses that have small CC frames. So that's why I normally do Z then 4, because right after Z, or like in the middle of Z, you can actually start your 4, your Axe Sweep, just to get that done. So that's your second CC chain. So the first one is the 1-2 punch, and then the second one for knockdown is Z then 4. Ooh, I am really not feeling well. But the for X, well, for the second thing for Z, if you have somebody grabbed, I normally put 3 points at the power slam, because as soon as you grab a boss or any mob, whatever, at the end of that grab, at the end of that 6 seconds, I normally hit Z, because it dazes them for 1 second, dazes enemies around them for 1 second. It knocks them down for 3 seconds. It gives them a deep wound, and it recovers 120 focus. Ooh. 120 focus over 4 seconds. So that's 30 focus a second. I'm starting to lose it, but I'll keep going. Also, for that power slam, as soon as you do the power slam, you're actually able to use Wrath after power slam for 4 seconds. So it's like a mini, I'm gonna say a mini Fury. So as soon as you drop the boss down with Z, you'll actually have your Wrath cleave combo. So like LR will go a little bit faster. Plus you get 120 focus. Where is it? 120 focus over 4 seconds. So that'll help with that focus regen. Ignore that guy. But for X headbutt, I normally don't use. If you want, isn't this like? No. Never mind. I don't actually use it. I thought it did like life steal, but it does not. But I never put points into it. I never actually use it. It's just a dead skill for me. The most important X skill though is Smash. I use it on the left tree for that extra damage on stunned or stunned, dazed, grabbed, or phantom gripped enemies. Uh, for PvE dungeons, I'll normally start with a jump, but I do have a Hung Moon Soul. If that soul is on cooldown, I'll actually jump into the boss, stun them, start with my smash, uh, for that extra damage on that, and I have a soul badge which I'll get into next that lets me use Wrath for 3 seconds every time I use smash. Every time a smash hits, people join in the lobby. But for smash, you can either use this one, or if you're leveling up, if you don't know how to fully do a dungeon yet, use the middle tree because it actually absorbs 100% of damage as HP, and if the boss is stunned, that's 150%, and it recovers focus too. So if you're dealing with focus problems, use that middle tree, and it's actually really good for lifesteal as well. Next, we're going to talk about C. Hurl I never really use unless I'm trying to troll in PvP, grabbing cats or grabbing people and then throwing them away. It's actually it makes them unconscious for 30 seconds if they blew their tab already. The other C is Searing Strike and Scorching Strike. Searing Strike is our second frame that we're going over. So the first one was 2. That entire charge is going to be an invul frame. For Searing Strike, it resists damage and status effects. It recovers 30 focus on a resist, and recovers HP if you put 3 points into it, which that's what I do. So for this entire frame, that entire move, you're invul. It's very good for bosses that have longer frames for attacks. So like if an enemy is spinning around a couple times, you could use that C and actually invul a couple of those. Maybe all 3. I never really. All I'm thinking about right now is layer, and I'm pretty sure you can resist all 3 of those little spins in layer with a C. If you resist anything, I put 3 points into Scorching Strike, right tree. You can approach the enemy, do a little bit of damage, and by a little, I think I'm critting for around 20k damage, and it recovers 30 focus if you crit. For the left tree though, left tree is used for PvP because it launches them in the air. For bosses that I do, I just like getting raw damage done, so that's why I use the right tree. So if you're using the C and you know you're gonna resist something, use the whole C, look at the boss, and then approach them with the second point of Scorching Strike. Now, Stone Shield is not an invul frame, but it's a very good block. I use the third tree in parties with my friends, just because we normally just balls to the wall. We just DPS. Everybody's close to the boss. I'll put it down. Everybody gets a 25% damage reduction and movement speed for 4 seconds. By myself though, I normally use this Stone Shield. It if you block stuff, if you're in front of the boss and you put it up and you start using your poke before after your shield. So what are you doing? Yes, learn. I normally do shield, and then every time you hit the boss or any enemy that you're going on, it'll actually decrease the cooldown by 1 second. But I normally keep this on just because I normally run with friends. Yeah, so these 2 are the ones that I use. The left tree I don't normally use. The right tree I use for PvP. But middle 2 trees are where it's at. This one for cooldown reduction. This one for a little bit more HP and for party assistance. Next thing we're going to go on to is our Q, which is Typhoon. Most characters in this game, Q and E are either dodges or... Q and E are normally dodges. Other characters have summons and throws and all that stuff. Ours is a red spin. I normally put 3 points into it because I'm normally doing dungeons. Every 5 hits on an enemy will actually stun them. Except bigger bosses, so again with layer, the final 2 bosses in layer, you will actually not get a tick of stun on them. but it's just a lot of good stuff, a lot of damage over time. Um, you resist stun, daze, knockdown, knockback, drag, phantom grip, and airborne. And for the first second of your red spin, so as soon as you hit it, go one Mississippi. So like around 2 or 3 spins, your first 2 or 3 spins, you are actually invul for that 1 second. Um, that's our third frame. So our first one was 2, our second one was C, and our third one is Q. Uh, so that's normally what I do. If I go into dungeons with a lot of mobs, I'll actually aggro all the mobs and then just red spin around them. Every 5 ticks, they'll actually get stunned, and after a while, it'll just become a stun lock. Uh, Most people I know don't put any points into Typhoon just because it's kind of like a waste of 3 points. But like I said, Hung Moon 12, I had a couple points, so I just normally put 3 points into it just for that extra oomph, extra kick. Before we get into our E, I'm gonna go with SS. Our SS really doesn't do much. You recover 30 focus on resist if you SS, and it increases your movement speed by 30%. I don't put points into it. It doesn't really have that big of a frame. I barely ever use SS just because the Q frames, the C frames, and the 2 frames are actually really nice. Uh, but that's technically another one. So technically 5 invols, but I normally never use SS. But to the main DPS for destroyers, Fury. The right trees are for PvP. If you get really into PvP, we'll talk about that later. But the left tree of Fury, you get a 6-second buff. It resists damage and status effects for like I think the first 2 seconds. I know it doesn't say it there, but I'm pretty sure after the first second or two, after this roar, once you're done roaring, I'm pretty sure your invul is off. It's done. You recover 180 focus during Fury, so during 6 seconds you get 30 focus a second. You decrease your defense by 100%. So remember that for 6 seconds, you are a glass cannon. If you get hit by something, you will get hit with all of their might. Yeah, it hurts, especially in Turtle. I actually got jumped on. Let's see if I can find the picture of it. I'll put it right there. But if I can't find the picture of it, it's not there. I used Fury, thinking that I was gonna get the invul frame in Turtle, but I think the poison canceled it. So like as I was furying, I guess the poison ticked, and the turtle dropped on me, and it hit me for 107k. I only have 97k HP, so it one-shot me. It hurt a lot. But you do resist stun, daze, knockback, and drag status during Fury. I'm pretty sure you can't get stunned, but it has happened a bunch of times in PvP where I've been stunned, I've been knocked down. It's weird in PvP. But you get, this is the best part. This is why we become a glass cannon. We get 100% critical hit rate and 30% crit damage. So pretty much if you're just chilling and you use Fury, I have 62% crit, 250% crit damage. So I'll go up to 100% critical rate and 280% crit damage. Plus Ember Stomp and then LR. I'm doing 17, 18k every LR, like every cleave and wrath. So that's pretty much our DPS. Every 45 seconds, Fury, LR. That's what we got. we're mostly utility, especially since 1 and 2 are our double stuns. Z and 4 is our double knocked out. Ooh. And if you want to get technical, if you go, where is it? If you go to tab, oh, we never went over tab. That's my fault. If you go to tab for Gust, for your escape skill, you can actually have a double daze by taking 2 points into Gust and taking points out of, where is it? Out of your F. Out of your knee for a double daze if your team needs it. But that's really iffy because you actually need to be stunned, knocked down, or dazed to tab out of stuff. I normally just keep it on daze for 2 seconds just because of Ebondrake. you'll get there when you get there. You need at least two people to daze him in one move, so that right after that, destroyers can grab in 6 seconds of free DPS. The other tab that you have is our main like escape skill or defensive skill. I normally put 5 points right into the middle. If you do not have Hong Moon tab, this is fine, or the right tree is fine. The right tree is parry, so for the first half second of your tab, you'll actually parry the first attack, and your movement speed goes up. You resist movement speed reductions for 3 seconds, and you recover 30% focus on a parry. I normally, since my ping isn't normally good, I normally just go for the middle one, because it gives you 500% defense during your entire spin, increases movement speed by 60%. You're able to move with it, decreases the damage of the first attack done to you by 40%. So not only do you have 5 times the defense, the first attack that you do does 40% less damage. It removes one snare and all attack and defensive skills. I don't know what that means. But, removes one snare effect on use. No, whatever that means. That last part. I normally just tab out. It does a little bit of damage, but it gives you some speed. It gives me 500% defense, and that's kind of what I like about it. But 1, 2, this is mostly our DPS. LR, animation cancel. You kind of just have to get used to it. After a while, it'll just become second nature. As I just showed, like you can mess up. You can do cleave a bunch of times in a row. It's fine. Just reset yourself, reset your modem, reset your router, whatever you want to call it, and then just keep going again. It's not something you learn overnight. For some people, it might have been, but for me, I needed to practice a little bit. As I showed again, I'm not very good at it still. Especially if I'm just sitting here talking about it. But if you get that down, you're pretty much golden. You have to know that your C, your 2, your SS, your E, and your Q are all invul frames. 1, 2 is stun. 4Z is knockdown. Your V, your stone shield, will actually block stuff from in front of you. And yeah, I think that's it for the first part of this video. That's Earth build for me. All right, and I'm back. Sorry about that little delay. That's Earth build for Destroyer. It's pretty much left, right, left, right, left, right. When your Fury is up, use your Fury with Ember Stomp, and then LR. So just pretty much this. Put down your Mighty Cleave whenever it's up, and there's your DPS. So remember, 1, 2, Z4, all your invul frames, and have fun playing Destroyer. That's all it's about, right? But yeah, thank you all for watching. My name's OCD. I love you. Bye. Woo woo.